You say the world needs ditch diggers, and that statement is true enough. But if you're saying it because you think you're better than us, then I've got a grudge. For we are every creed and color. We are a woman and we are a man. We fall into what society calls blue collar, and we are proud to wear that brand. Our hard hats are our resume. They're tattooed with stickers, timelines of who we are, where we've been, what we've built with our machines, our skills, our hands. So everyone is built to do something, and we were built to build this world. We're doing what we were designed to do since we were just little boys and girls.
Love it. I
Is
love
that,
it.
is that right?
That was amazing, Greg.
All
Thanks
right,
so
good,
much,
good.
man. It's right up the alley of the whole show and everything that goes on and the love and passion that we all have for the construction industry, man. So thank you.
Yeah.
That was great.
Excited to be here. Excited to talk to you. I think what you're doing is fantastic. We really
Thanks, man.
appreciate
It's always nice to have some people that are like me.
it.
Welcome to the show, Greg. Really happy about having you on this show. I'm excited. We got a lot of questions. I want to talk a lot about what's going on, the Builder Project, what you guys have been up to, what you're doing, and how it's basically what I would say changing the industry.
We're aiming to take a different perspective on things, because I'm sure you've seen it where it's almost like a greater chance of a project to be over budget, behind schedule than it is to be one or the other.
I was just having this conversation because I think I have this conversation all the time. I don't think I've ever had a job actually came in on time, on budget, on perfect. I don't think that exists. I have yet to meet that unicorn in construction. That's just me.
It's got to be out there. There's someone out there. It's like one of our motivations. Someone out there that has that skill set, has some kind of something in their brain.
They won't
and
share
we gotta
it.
like snatch them up before
They won't
like
share
IT
it.
or someone comes
They
in
will
there,
never share it. I guarantee you, they will never share it because it was I don't know. It was just by accident, by fluke, or something happened. Everything was lined up and it just worked out perfectly. But welcome to the show. Let me do a quick shout out. I'm wearing Danny Doska's hoodie here. Great bricklayer up from Montreal, Quebec area. He's planning on getting back on the show and talking more brick. Everyone knows I've got a particular fondness for bricklaying. So he does great work, and I'm wearing his hoodie. So thank you, Danny, so much. But today we've got Greg Murphy on the show. He's a co-founder of thebuilderproject.com. Greg at thebuilderproject.com, and it's on Instagram and LinkedIn, but mostly on LinkedIn under the Builder Project banner. We're going to talk, Greg, a lot about shortage, workage, development, sustainability, about efficiency. We're going to talk a lot about this industry. How can we make it much better?
Yes.
Where do we begin this mammoth project? Mammoth, this is construction. Where do we begin? How can we begin?
Yeah, it's gotta be at the lowest level. It's gotta be with the individuals, the construction professionals, hammering those nails, lifting those girders. Those are the people that we need to focus on, train them up, and just kind of let them loose. I know in Canada, because I've watched your show, there's a labor shortage there.
Everywhere around the world.
Here, it's everywhere. And I think we got to really kind of focus on that. If you want to start there, let's do it.
We'll start there for sure. But I do want to let everybody know that you guys are in New York and we're in Toronto. And this is a common theme around the world that I'm quickly realizing, because we have been fortunate enough to interview other people that are outside in Europe. And we want to get into South America. We want to get into lots of places. Obviously, we've spoken to a lot of people in the US and Canada.
Yeah.
But this is a common theme. And I agree with you that it starts off with that person, that tradesperson.
Yeah. And I know you guys are you're not into like baseball or whatever up there. So down where we're at, we got like baseball and basketball. Those, you guys just have hockey. But I know I'm a former athlete, so I like to look at these different athletic programs, and where you start is at the lowest level, the children. You kind of get them into youth hockey or youth baseball, basketball. And, for us, at least in New York, I know that's a big thing. My business partner and I have gone to different events and kind of discussed that with various entities. Like, we need to bring back the technical education programs in the schools, just exposure to it at a low level. There's one study I read that I'm obsessed with. I always refer back to it. It's called Young Talent Motivations to Pursue Craft Careers in Construction, the Theory of Planned Behavior. I don't even want to the people
Can
who
you
wrote
guys
it,
send me that link? I'd love to actually take a look at that. I'm very
yeah, for
curious about
sure.
that. Yeah.
It's a fantastic study that kind of indicates that the U.S. construction industry is, and facing a few challenges to attract young talent and to pursue that, have them pursue craft careers. And basically, the main goal of the research is to understand the underlying factors that influence these career selections, so that next generation kind of can get in line, just trying to see where that issue is. Why aren't more people? I know the study is it's a little depressing because they do go to a school, a technical school, and where this is where they take the survey. So those people, those individuals are already exposed to the industry, and not even, it's not like 100%. It's somewhere, I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm just gonna say about 60% of people go into the industry. So that, you're taking a very focused, tight shot group of people who are already exposed, kind of looking to turn into a tradesperson, and then not even, all of them want to do it. So
I want to ask you, Greg, do you think that we're having such a challenging time in construction these days because there is so much competition out there for career options? Like we've
yeah,
never seen as many options out there as we have now.
yeah, for sure. I think it's a huge influence. Everyone, that IT, the computer, I grew up during that. Computers were, starting to become everywhere, and then, for the older people out there, you had the card catalog in the library, and then it went to
Yeah.
computer, and
Yeah.
so on and so forth. So it's like, you know, that's like a huge thing. It's so easy, anyone can do it, and there are a ton of careers that have just come out of, nowhere over the past like 2 decades that didn't exist, a few decades ago. So it's just that much more competition for, someone to become a construction professional.
But we're all different. I mean, there's plenty of room for doctors, accountants, even lawyers.
Yeah.
And there's all room for different kinds of careers out there. But a lot of people have a calling for construction. They just
Yeah.
don't realize it. But I mean, I guess because maybe there's a stigma attached to it, where it goes back to the poem where you're talking about blue collar, and it's like, I guess we're looked upon, like we're looked down
For,
upon. And
for
it's
sure.
not that way, because I've always had these conversations with the younger trades, and I kept explaining to them that you have a skill set that these other people don't have, nor will they ever have, because they don't have the heart or the passion for it. You can build a house. Like, I'm talking about
100%.
you as a part of a bigger picture. You're a tradesperson that's contributing to a bigger picture, and you can build a house. That's a huge thing, man.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the pandemic was a rude awakening for a lot of people. I know because we're in a suburb of New York City, and I know you turn on the news during the pandemic, it was like a crazy, like almost like war zone in the city,
Yeah.
and people really started to understand, like, without those construction professionals, none of these emergency rooms would exist. I know I was we're affiliated with a general contracting firm, Empire General Contracting, out of Tuckahoe, New York, another suburb of New York City,
Okay.
and they were working around the clock. The carpenters, tapers, painters, um, just going in these hospitals and facilities, being exposed to all this stuff to try and create a better healing environment for those doctors, for those nurses. And I think it was hopefully it was like a spark that kind of ignites this kind of renaissance, if you will, to have people come back to the trades, because it does serve a purpose. It does. The young people want purpose, I feel like, and what better than I'm going to go build a healing environment,
Yeah.
so I can help people.
I agree with you, and I think that's probably one of the biggest lessons that we can take away from that whole situation that happened, is that you had a lot of tradespeople starting to think differently and build differently, and started
Yeah.
realizing, because I think all of us were going home and realizing our home wasn't truly a home. There was
Yeah.
some missing elements here that can be better improved. And so you had all types of different tradespeople out there trying to figure out, how can we make our home cleaner, safer, better. I
Yeah.
mean, we spend whatever the stats are. I know that I've had so many shows and so many people talk about the amount of time we spend indoors, the amount of time, we sleep at home, or all this stuff, right? We cook and we live and everything like that. But our environment's not perfect, and it can be perfect. You can build
Yeah.
better, right? Yeah.
Yeah. You gotta, I'm, I'm, my mindset is you're on this earth one shot only, like, and for me personally, I got this many years to work, because I want to retire, and so like from here to here, I want to become the best at whatever I want to do, try and change the world and be positive and grow the environment around me. And I think that's one of the things that if we can create like a coalition of construction professionals, we can create the next, Empire State Building or whatever, we can create that environment, that perfect environment that everyone wants and needs.
So how did it begin for you guys? How did it start, Greg, where you guys came up? I want to know what was it, beers? Was it
It's
just
a funny
coffee?
story.
What's the
So like,
story?
yeah, so we're both parents, and one day my wife comes home from dropping my son off at preschool, and she's like, it's this kind of funny woman who she's she's into construction or something. I don't know. Can you talk to her? So I'm like, oh shit, this is another one of those volunteer projects your wife gets you into that you're like, I cannot wait to go to this woman's house and like fix some shit, and then I talked to my business partner Parveen, or at that time just random woman Parveen, and I was like, hey, my wife Molly, she had mentioned you're interested in the construction industry. I'd love to, like, whatever you want, I'm an open book. Just ask me questions. And she's like, instead of what I thought she was going to ask, like, oh, my door is out of plumb. My door's sticking. Can you fix it? It was, I'm trying to start a business to focus on women joining the industry. And I was just like, I was floored. I was like, what? And she sent me her slides for her business. It was called Build Her Central. We've since changed the name to the Builder Project, but we got to talking, and then we finally met on a play date, where my son probably tortured her daughter, and how little kids are. And then from that play date, we just kind of kept talking, and eventually we were both like, we kind of came to a common ground, and we're like, let's do this. Let's try and change the world. And worst case scenario, we kind of, at the end of the day, we can hold our head high and say we gave it a whirl. So that's where we're at.
So how's that battle coming along?
It's a slog to try and convince some of these, building owners, like, hey, you can save your tenants money. You can create a better environment. It's to try and sell yourself and sell these people on investing that upfront money. And even that's including all these different grants and financing, all that stuff. It's becoming slightly easier, but it's still not an easy thing to try and retrofit, do a deep passive house retrofit kind of thing. It's for us, that's our big hurdle right now.
You guys have two hurdles, I see, right? Because you have the initial clients themselves that have the budgets, have the expenses that they have to cover, but then you also have the old school builders set in their ways that you have to tackle.
Yeah.
And it's really hard, like, to have these conversations about longevity. And I mean, gone are the days of building for generations? Have we totally forgotten about building for generations, or are we just building for the moment right now?
I personally feel like we've got to collectively as a society understand we want to build for quality. We want to build for the future. And I know being on construction sites, it's all about production. It's all about bust it out. I don't care. You work a 12, you work a 12, and if we can just take a second, breathe, find some common ground, come together and actually say, like, look, I know I steal your phrase, race to the bottom. If we can get away from that, I use it all the time now. Sorry, I don't mention your name at all.
That's fine. Take it. I tell everybody to take all of them.
All right, good. But if we can get that people out of the mindset of that and just really focus on quality, And then if we can focus on this next generation of construction professionals that we're bringing up and teach them, none of those bad habits, but this new way of thinking, I think the possibilities are endless, what we can create.
I do have a lot of faith in the up and coming younger generation of tradespeople that are working, because they are at least having more conversations than we did when we first got started in it. And definitely, I'm not knocking the baby boomers out there at that, because they would just dismiss everything, and this is how it was done, this is how it's being done, and this is how it's always going to be done, right?
Yeah.
But at least this younger generation is looking at options.
Yeah.
They're considering. But I also I want to ask you, Greg, are we getting, or are we muddying the waters when we get a lot of different brands that are kind of giving us mixed messaging on products? Like I argue this all the time with the brands. I keep on going, okay, listen, I get this one product A is amazing, but your product B is terrible. And I can't mix A and B together. So I can't work. No, you got to do this all together with A and B and C and D. No. Why can't we just all kind of work together and try to figure out what is the best product for this ceiling application, this kind of window dressing, this
or tiling.
Yes,
how many different applications of tile do you see out there? It's like cement board or dry pack or Curdy system. It's like that. I totally agree. I think we need to start really focusing on trying to find that common ground, like I said, and also trying to have, like, I don't know, some leadership, actually try and unite people and focus on, one thing, one goal, and trying to, funnel all of the resources we have into it. I know with our company, we try and make sure we give people options, but options that are applicable to their situation. If their house doesn't need solar panels because it's not appropriate, we're not going to suggest that. And then our big thing, I know, I don't know if you have the lead system in Canada.
Yeah, we do.
Or not.
We do. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I didn't do any Canada research. I apologize. I should have.
Neither have I. I just live here. That's all it is. So don't worry. I'll tell you what the colors of the flag are, and that's about it, man.
Okay, good. But so one of the things that sticks out for me and Parveen, I know, is one of the things is buying local. Getting local resources.
And that's paramount. So important.
Yes. Because, like, if you really think about it, with you're trying to lower your carbon emissions and all this stuff, you're not only going to do that by going down to your local hardware store or whatever, but you're also helping your community. And that's huge for us. We're both young parents. We want our kids to grow up in a community of love and a healthy community. And just like, it kind of, is like one of our big mission points for our company, but it just snowballs, if you can do that. And I don't know where
it's nice to see, because I am seeing a lot of tradespeople. And I mean, if you're talking about local, I know that construction is very proud, and they love creating a lot of marketing swag, and you're wearing hoodies and stuff like that. But I'm starting to see a lot of tradespeople getting it made locally instead of having it just made in China or something and then having it shipped here, and that's it. So it's like, why can't we do the same with that? Like, every country has the sustainability to do all that building within their own infrastructure of their own community. Yeah. Like you said, it brings it right back to the community.
Yeah. And then also, like, how far down the sustainability rabbit hole do you want to go? Like, we were just speaking at an event on Wednesday night, and there was a woman, I'm an asshole. I forgot her company name. I'd love to shout it out, but I forgot. But great company in New York City, trying to just help people bring up awareness of solar panels and all that stuff. But it kind of made me think, like, well, where is she getting these solar panels? There's precious metals that are necessary and vital for the functioning of that solar panel. Like, where is that being mined? Like, how far down the line do you want to really kind of measure this carbon footprint, but, I think we gotta just stay positive. We can be negative all day, sharpshoot people stuff. I'm sure you get it all the time, but if we just build positive.
But I know that this has always been, from my first day of construction, this one detail in construction has always been there. It's always reared its head. It's always a part of the conversation. It will always be a part of the conversation, and it's money. It's
Yeah.
just like money will dictate clients' decisions, builders' decisions, all kinds of decisions, and you have to factor it in. And how do you guys handle that? How can we kind of explain that money can't be the first? It can be
Yeah.
the second, maybe, but it can't be the first.
Yeah. So for what we do is we definitely first we'll come in, we'll do an audit. We'll look at the building envelope to like, hey, your pipes underneath your sink in your bathroom insulated, that kind of stuff. We view the building as an organism, like a human body, and we try and sell, preventative maintenance, just like, what your doctor is going to be like an apple a day and go run on a treadmill, go lift some weights, be healthy. So we kind of take that same approach as like, look, you're either going to pay a vastly larger amount of money down the road if you don't do the proper flashing, or you don't, install this or that, or you don't check your building envelope, you know, down the road, or you can just kind of look at it now, little investment up front, and from there, then we kind of give them options. We kind of give them three different price ranges from like, okay, it's kind of like one of, you go to a mechanic shop and you're like, oh, I don't have 10 grand. What can I do? And
Yeah.
it's giving them options. Okay, this you should focus on first, so on and so forth. So we do a very similar approach where we kind of give them different options. Like, okay, your building envelope is your main issue here. You got to replace a roof, or you got to look at your windows, or so on and so forth. And from there, we can kind of go to the local vendors and suppliers and say like, okay, here's what we can provide. Here's what they can provide. Here are your options, and really kind of work with them and the local community to, solve their issues.
So it goes right back to where we started with the show. We're talking about it starts off with the boots on the ground, the tradesperson.
Yeah.
And we've got to give them the right words or the right knowledge to kind of keep on getting that messaging out there. We can't have them just keep their head down and the blinders on and just build because you're being asked to build. You have to question why you're building in a certain way. And if it's not being built properly to last, how do we get them to have that conversation with either their employer or the client or their suppliers?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a probably not the easiest question. Like,
That's why I asked
but
you, man. You can answer it.
yeah. So, I think first off, I guess on a macro view, if we can, you got the Hanses of the world. I know you had Hans
Yeah.
Ike. You got him, and you've got architects. You got these design teams. You've got building owners. I think the last missing piece for this green movement would be the tradespeople.
Yeah.
And I think if we can ingest that at an early age, like I said, at the school level, teaching them, when you're teaching them in the technical education classes, like you can teach them passive building construction, and then they grow up with that. Okay, I need this size framed wall. I need this type of insulation. And they actually know the difference between open cell and closed cell insulation, and really kind of making those materials, the knowledge material base, more available, easily digestible, and in different formats, because everyone learns differently. I'm one of the, like, I can sit in a classroom for 8 hours a day. I'm probably going to absorb 15 minutes of it if it involves like sports or something.
But if you're swinging a hammer and you're on the job site and you're trying to figure out how to build it better, that's different.
Yeah. And I think it also comes down to having these suppliers come out and just being more connected to their local building community. If, hey, I just got this new product out, let's try it out. I don't know if you've seen that where you're at, where they come out. Hey,
they've done that a number of times. They haven't done it in a while because of the way the world was for the last 3 years, but they used to do that all the time. They would ask us to try it. I'd be the worst one for any of them to come up to me, because I would tell them my 2 cents right off the bat if it's going to work or if I don't think it's going to work. But that's where I go back to muddying the waters with the brands, and they're trying to convince me of something that I don't necessarily believe in. I wanted to ask you, Greg, is like, I know that we have the problem here with a lot of high schools are removing all the trade classes out of their schools,
Yep.
right? So they're not even teaching it. I'm at the mindset right now where I think that there should be some sort of trade education at the elementary stage. I think there's a disconnect by the time, like, when your children are small enough and they want these toys and they want that little toy arsenal of tools and they're using them, but then all of a sudden they stop using them and then they get to high school and then they're not interested in using them, but they have a calling for it. Is that the same thing in New York? Is that going on across all of America, that it's being
Yeah.
removed more than is being implemented?
I don't know the statistic off the top of my head, but I knew that I know when I grew up, I had that at the elementary and the high school level, and I know it's been removed. It's not in a lot of schools. I do think it is extremely important, especially to see this, trend reverse. I know your show with David P, the Mexican carpenter.
Yeah, the Mexican carpenter.
I
It's great.
yeah, I loved it because I took a very similar approach with my son when I was renovating my basement during the pandemic, because we were like, what do we do? We're so bored. So I had him cutting sheetrock. I had him, like, he loved it. He absolutely loved it. I got him his own little tool belt, and he spent hours with me. Not as productive as I would have hoped he would have been, but he was. I think it is important. It is something that we, at least Parveen and I, have told organizations in the New York area. One of them is BRI. It's like a organization in Westchester. It's a Building Realty Institute. They had a big event, and there was an entire 2-hour discussion on labor shortage and how to fix it. And at the end, they were like, "Yep, we got to get this down to the lowest level." And as far as like where it is in the legislative process, at least we said our 2 cents and trying to bring it to our elected officials, at least to
I
bring it
mean,
back.
I'll say, Greg, that what I've learned from, and I'm still trying to get more elected officials on the show because it's, I find it slightly entertaining that questions are asked and nothing's ever answered.
Yeah,
I think the way you get rid of the labor shortage is that you don't involve elected officials. I think we're kind of on our own now, that we got to kind of build our own community and attract more and more people, because it's such a challenging point to get elected officials to be on our side to understand what this is really going on. And
yeah,
I think that it's important that if you do have elected officials that are actually speaking on our behalf, they must have at some point in their life swung a hammer.
yeah,
I'm all asking is that you have to have some sense of construction for me to have
yeah.
a general conversation with you. So then, because if you want to change the industry, I think you must have had that opportunity to understand where we're all coming from.
Yeah, for sure. And I
Yeah.
think you got to have that, baseline domain knowledge of, hey, like, this is how things operate. I'm not saying you need to be a master
No,
carpenter or some
no,
kind of, but
no.
just like a general sense of like, hey, this is the life. Cause I don't know what it's like in Canada, but the industry is really demanding. Mental health is a huge thing. It's,
It's the same way, man. Same way.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately. So it really does help if they do have that background. And I see where I agree with you that to an extent I think we are kind of on our own. We have to, grab the bull by the horns. And I- I wish, and I know there's some uh companies out there that have started reaching out a little bit more, but it would be great to see those companies like Skanska or Lend-Lease or Tishman, the big GCs in America, start actually creating programs, after school programs. And I know there's a Soulful Synergy is a workforce development company out of Westchester, New York, that focus exactly on that. It's a company that goes around Westchester, New York, and does workforce development with older adults, just trying to, like, a BOCES program, and just brings people in and is like, hey, you want to learn this trade? You're going to have a fantastic occupation after you graduate. We're going to teach you a little bit of everything, and we're going to try and place you with a company somewhere along the line. So I know it's happening, but if we could get those big backers with all that money and infrastructure, I think where,
I agree.
from
Yeah.
your perspective where we could make that
I
happen.
totally agree. And I mean, I say the elected officials, you know, with a huge dump truck of salt, you know what I mean? Like a massive amount of salt. I say that because I think what happens is when we get down to the boots on the ground and we get to that one single tradesperson, they don't think they're making a difference. And that's not the case. They're making, like, one person can actually make a difference. As cliche as
Yeah.
that sounds, in construction, one tradesperson can make a difference.
Yeah, it's a thankless job, and I know when any moment I got a good email, I would forward it to my team and say, just I really appreciate it. Thank you for the hard work. I thank you, pat on the back, whatever. It goes such a long way in this industry, and you don't know what that individual's day was like.
Yeah,
Clearly
exactly.
suicide is a thing. I think it's 45 out of 100,000 in America in the construction industry that kill themselves. So it's a thing, and a simple thank you or an appreciation. And like I said, during the pandemic, it finally hit people that, oh wow, like thank you for doing this. Like you don't have to be in this hospital. You could have stayed home, but now you're working next to me
Yeah.
and giving me an environment to work in. I think, it was nice to see those doctors that, kind of stereotypically, I'm not saying every doctor is like this,
Yeah.
but they have that snooty kind of, I'm a doctor, I'm so smart, kind of go way back to the ditch diggers comments, and then it hit them that, everyone's jobs are important as they
We're
are.
all in it together. We're all in it
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
All right. So I got to do a little bit of history here. So I'm talking to Greg Murphy from thebuilderproject.com, Greg at thebuilderproject.com, and on LinkedIn and Instagram. Find it when you search The Builder Project. Different types of residential exterior siding, Greg. Brick. Pros, fire and moisture resistant, sustainable due to clay's abundance, strong and durable, insulating. Cons, rising costs due to high transport prices, labor intensive install. The intensive installation. Mortar may need repointing. Stone, pros, pretty much the same as brick. Veneer is much cheaper. Wood, pros is highly varied, renewable resource. Cons, high maintenance. Aluminum, pros are affordable, moisture and cold resistant, insulating. Cons will dent and scratch, fade, and becomes chalky over time. Vinyl, highly affordable, not so eco-friendly, can reduce home value. Steel, pros, durable, fire, moisture, heat, cold resistant, can be pressure washed. Cons, expensive. That's basically it. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
everybody's using now for building. I want to actually ask you about, are most tradespeople, when they're starting in this industry, are they looking at the bigger picture?
I think so. I actually surveyed a bunch of construction professionals when I first started with Parveen, just like I was on a site working with Empire General Contracting, and I just asked a lot of the trades, what do you think? Where are we at? What's going on with the labor shortage? And a lot of them were just trying to focus on what they had to do that day, what they had to do to, get to the end of the week. Because like when you're in it, it's hard to kind of pull yourself out.
I
But
know that you probably, I don't know if you listened to it, but there's been a few shows last year when we were recording, and I kept on advocating for 4-day weeks.
There's a construction company out of Hawaii that does 4-day weeks, and I
Lots.
forget the name of it, but I read this article and I'm like, why aren't we doing like 4 days, 10 hours? Like it just, another YouTube construction thing, the Perkins brothers. I don't know if you've seen it.
No.
Say again.
No, I haven't seen it. No.
Oh yeah, it's just like a local small little, literally two brothers that do construction in North Carolina, and they do four days a week. They call Thursday Friday. So I think that would help. That might go a long way to just give those construction professionals another day of rest, because it is demanding. You go into New York City, you're an iron worker, you're up 30 stories. You look like a Michelin man,
Yeah.
and you're trying to weld these two structural beams together. It's a lot. It's a lot physically, emotionally, mentally, and then you're just trying to not freeze and not fall at the same time.
I think it
If you
would
might do
work.
that,
I think it totally would work. I think that
yeah,
I think a lot of other places, Europe is doing it.
Yeah.
I think that here in North America, probably what would happen is that you would do the 4 day weeks, you would get your production that you need to get done in 4 days. But I think that fifth day of the week would give you a day to clear your mind and actually try to figure out how to move the industry forward. That's what
Yeah.
I'm looking at it like. Okay, fine. You would have time to spend with your family. You would have time to spend for yourself and do other
Yeah.
projects. But also, you would have a clearer mind to think about the future of construction at that point.
For sure. And I think it not only for that, it also goes from the construction professional, boots on the ground, even to the managers, you know.
Yes.
As I'm finishing up my master's in construction management from Wentworth Institute of Technology out of Boston, and it's like a huge thing if you can just have that extra day of planning, because planning, you know, it has a ripple effect with schedules and trying to just maintain everything, because then if the plans are all messed up, unfortunately it's going to roll
Trickle.
down to
Yeah.
the bottom.
So how do we? I want you to share, Greg. I'd love for you to share how we can build much better for the environment. Certain things that we can start considering. When I know that you focus more on commercial applications, but it's still. I've always said it on the show several times. Commercial applications always get filtered out right down to residential applications. It eventually shows
Yeah.
up there. It's no different than what technologies in F1. It actually gets into your car that you drive every single day. That's exactly what happens with construction from commercial to residential. What are
Yep.
some of the things that you want to start seeing get amplified?
I think if given the choice, you know, like you should go with the thicker insulation and, you know, bite the bullet up front. I think you know, the building envelope, you know, you know, I'm a little biased. I like the passive, you know, construction. I think
I love it.
that would that would help tremendously. So if we can kind of figure out something along those lines, and then just have all of those energy efficient options on the table. Don't even make it an option. Like there's a couple of new buildings I've worked in and around down at one of the healthcare facilities in New York City. With I think it was built 5 years ago, and they instead of LEDs they went cheap and they went incandescent light bulbs. So I was like, this is a multi-billion-dollar building, and you don't use LEDs. It's a little mind-boggling, but
Yeah.
once again, it comes down to money. But if you don't have that option, I'm not saying mandates or anything, but you know, really try and focus on this should be kind of one of the only options, you know.
Do you think, Greg, that code is moving too slowly?
I think it's so in Westchester, it's very like little hamlets, little small towns, and there are some towns that are like too far ahead where people can't keep up because they don't have enough money to, you know,
Yeah.
dig a huge trench in their basement to install geothermal, you know. And then there's other towns that are like where they're arguing over paper or plastic and a recycling bin, you know. It's like it's weird. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but if we could, you know, I guess move a little bit more consistently across the board, I think that would be the most beneficial.
Okay, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, but I think that most buildings nowadays are actually being built with geothermal already being considered for their source. Is that the fact that that's what they're doing, right?
Yeah, yeah, I know. Where we're at, it's not mandated, but it is definitely it's in one of the design considerations. You know, we're dealing a lot with just like retrofits and trying to upgrade the existing building that we, you know, that are in our neighborhoods and stuff. So, you know, with the new codes, I'm not an expert on, but yeah, no, it's definitely that they are trying to have these building codes upgraded and updated.
Yeah, I know that in Toronto here, we're seeing a lot of that, that any new structures, you're getting those options because we're right off of Lake Ontario. So
Yeah,
you can actually get all that cooling source from there. And
yeah,
I'm wondering, why aren't we not getting some elected officials or anybody or even big time builders actually considering whole subdivisions and communities going that route and just setting up, because I know there's a lot of upfront costs, especially specifically with geothermal. There's a
yeah.
huge amount of upfront costs. But
Oh
if you
yeah.
spread that upfront cost across a community, then it helps out
Hmm.
everybody.
Yeah, for sure. And I know one of the things like Wednesday night we went to this event, and the solar power woman, she was discussing community solar and all the different pros of just having, like you said, a whole community that is, basically energy independent.
Yeah.
So I think it's moving that direction in a lot of places, but not consistently enough,
In New
I
York,
think.
there are you guys are all the I guess building officials or the politics there, are they offering incentives? Does it benefit
Yes.
homeowners? Yeah, because the
Yes.
unfortunate thing with us here in Ontario and Canada, they're removing all the incentives. It's getting
Oh,
frustrating. Oh
wow.
yeah, and it's really
Wow.
extremely frustrating that we used to have incentives to actually get EV chargers put into your home. Those are all gone now. It makes
Oh,
no
wow.
sense. So they're removing all these things because that's the powers that be right now. So
Yeah.
it's nice to hear that you guys still have it, but how do we
Yeah.
keep moving forward when you keep on removing the incentives?
Yeah. I that's crazy. If you can't really do that, especially if you're expecting, everyone, communities to become, energy efficient. I think you really need that. And what would help, I know here you need a lawyer and, 10 hours of free time to digest the paperwork you need to fill out in a lot of
Wow.
instances,
Yeah.
So it's you kind of gotta have the incentives and make it easily digestible. And I get it. Someone's going to try and take advantage of it, you know, but you can't punish everyone because of some silly idiot that, was like, I just need 10 grand. So let me say I'm going to get solar panels and then I'm, off to, not there anymore. They move or something. So I think there's got to be something out there that people like you and me can understand and we can just jump right into it.
Do you think, Greg, it's like, I'm curious, do you think it's because most people don't consider their homes a generational home? Do you think it's almost as if, okay, so this isn't our forever home, right? So if it's
Y-
not my forever home and I'm not handing it down to so and so, I'm going to just for sale it and list it to a complete stranger. Why am I going to invest into this
Yeah,
effort?
yeah, I think it's a little bit of that, and it's a little bit of, they rent or something, and it's I know one job Parveen and I were on, we were dealing with this woman who basically was and she owned her own bakery, and the building owner didn't want to. He put all the onus on her, so she had to maintain the windows, all the infrastructure, basically maintain the building, but just paid rent, and she didn't see any real incentive to upgrade. And it's trying to find that fine line of like get everyone at the table and talk about it and just say, look, I know you don't want to invest, you don't want to invest, but if we can come to an agreement and try and find that common ground.
Why not
um
split the cost at that point? Like, I mean,
yeah,
you got a
exactly,
happy tenant, you
exactly.
got a happy landlord, and just split the cost. You're saving money on expenditures for utilities at that point. You're running
Yeah.
a business. You can use it as a marketing angle as well, too.
Yeah.
I don't know. That would make more sense, no?
Yeah, for sure. And then it's just, I guess, working at it. And I think more and more people are exposed to this, to the whole, trying to reduce your carbon footprint, all that stuff. And I think eventually people will start to realize the savings that they're going to incur once they start to upgrade their infrastructure and stuff.
Are you guys are you seeing an increase in renewable energy in New York there? Are you
Yeah,
getting more
they're
like
they're
cleaner energy, right?
Yeah, they're trying. There's a big push. They're really trying to reduce. I know in New York City specifically, there's a local law that's mandating buildings of a certain size to reduce their carbon footprint by, I think it's like 2025 or 2030. Whether it's achievable is still like up for debate, but New York is one of those more, conscious places in America, which is good, but then it's a double-edged sword where you mandate these things and there isn't the information out there, or there's a lack of knowledge, like you were saying before, with the elected officials, and it muddies the water, even further, and it just creates chaos. So I know for us, we're trying to, when we come and visit with someone, and just basically instill as much knowledge of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and what they can do to basically help them and our community.
I'm going to suggest something, Greg. I'm just going to try something and see if this actually works or get me into more trouble. Like, I think it's like we don't start at the top of the mountain. I think we start at the bottom in a small little town. And
Yeah,
I think if everybody were to go into their own community and their own street, their own crescent or whatever, 20, 30 homes, and just knock on everybody's door and just introduce yourself to them and just ask them, how conscious are you of your carbon footprint? And
yeah,
just get a census of how many people actually do care about this. Because I think if
yeah,
you were to start to prove to the elected officials, this little community here is really conscious of actually reducing everything and saving more energy. And they're interested in doing better windows, more insulation, trying to upgrade their home, all these things. But they would love assistance by some
yeah,
government credits or tax breaks or something like that. Would
yeah.
you guys consider doing that? I mean, you think that would work?
I think it has a shot. Yeah, it doesn't hurt. And I'm sure there's enough people in our area that would definitely kind of sign up, and the next town hall meeting, it would be a topic of conversation.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind a little help to get like a triple hung windows installed in my house, but yeah, I think whatever it is, I think starting maybe at the bottom is a good starting point. Get that community perspective and grow it from there.
Go back to
Grassroots.
yeah, grassroots viral marketing, and I bet you any money at that point you'll get some pretty big corporations, brands in an industry that would
Yeah,
take note of it, and they'd be like, well, what's going on here? Look, like this is insane. Why is this happening? Well, it's happening because we actually want to stay in this house. We want to create a generational home. We want to
yeah,
save energy. We don't want to keep on spending more and more energy. Wouldn't it be amazing to have the objective to actually reduce your energy consumption on your current home? Don't do
yeah.
anything but reduce your consumption. Like, just figure out what can we do to reduce the consumption.
Yeah. It's starting at like an individual level of like
Yes.
just being conscious about it. Just be like, hey, I could recycle this paper, or I'm lucky enough where I could walk into town and get my groceries. So we do that. We'll do like a family walk, especially when my 4-year-old is losing his mind and we need to have him run off some steam. So we'll go get breakfast in town, come back. It's if you can start out on an individual level and then collectively as a group come together, I think that would, it would be great. It's almost like a societal change, as at an individual level.
I mean, I know that you brought up a few points before we got talking on the show, and it was about knowledge and information. And I know that construction, and I go back to the younger generation, they're totally interested in trying to figure out how to do things more efficient, how to do things better. So they want that knowledge, they want that information. I would love to see more and more brands, because they're listening. I know they're always listening. I would love for them to actually share that knowledge and share that R&D without the sales pitch.
Yeah.
Don't give me the sales pitch. Just give me the R&D, and I guarantee you the sale will come. But listen to the R&D and share the R&D, and then we will try it. We will be boots on the ground. We'll work it, and it'll work
Yep.
really well. And then all of a
Yep.
sudden, guess what? The sale will come.
For sure. Especially, if it works, it's easy to install, and production is high. It's a huge thing if a company out there like LP or something is like this new siding that's energy efficient. It's helps your house become airtight, and install is down 20% or something like that, or the rate increase or whatever productivity. So that's another huge selling point.
I would love to know if you have this information, and I don't want to ruffle any feathers, but what state is actually building like some of the best homes?
I don't have it off the top of my
And
head.
I'd be curious. I'd be
I
curious to know which one is actually building the best ones out there that's actually getting a nice carbon footprint. I'd be very, very curious. Would it be California? It's not in California, would it? Or I don't know.
maybe, or maybe Texas. I know Texas is
There's a lot of
pretty
building,
good.
a lot of interesting building going on in Texas, right?
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
they're also very energy conscious. I know they're up there. I think it's the top state in the country. with renewables. So
Yeah,
I
I'm just
wouldn't be
curious. I
surprised.
mean, I guess right now, even in Canada, I would probably say BC, Vancouver is probably because they have more extremes. They have to deal with seismic. They have to deal with extreme
Yeah.
Mother Nature and weather. Versus here in Toronto, it's a gong show here in Toronto. Is basically what it is, right? You just build to the minimum standards, is what you do,
Yeah,
just to
3 feet
pass.
down, for us for foundation, and you're lucky if they'll put like a insulation on the outside and waterproof membrane, and you're kind of like, all right, here we go.
I,
That's it. That's all
I
you're getting.
yeah, I've said it before where I really would love homeowners to actually be educated and understand construction so they can understand that you get one shot at insulation. Later on, it's
Yeah,
going to cost a lot more.
yeah,
Windows you can eventually upgrade, but insulation, the way you build that wall assembly, you get one shot at that. And
yeah,
you should really consider that expense. That's an important
yeah,
expense.
for sure. I worked harder, not smarter, when renovating my basement. I insulated everything, and it sucked. It's not fun. It just straight up sucked. I was just like telling my son to go upstairs. Daddy just needs a minute to himself. I just kind of, it's just like, uh, I'm trying to, set a good example, and I'm just losing my mind. My wife's like, "What's going on down there?" I'm like, "Stay upstairs," but
Don't worry, the pain will
no.
be over soon. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But now, it helps. It's like we've got, a couple of heaters down here. My whole house is electric, and we got everything, thermostats, the whole nine, and we're electrified, which is great now. Our electric bill is like 350 or something a month, but it's also a Sears home, so, which was weird learning about Sears and doing some research there, but
What exactly is a Sears? I know I've heard of it, but I don't know
yeah.
what makes it a Sears home.
Yeah, so back in the day, Sears was the biggest residential construction entity out there,
Oh,
and you could literally go to a catalog and open it, flip through it, and be like, "I want this and this and this," and they would shit it out for you and
that
build
makes
it.
me nervous.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, it's an older home, so like the 2x4s are true 2x4, and it was a doozy doing some demo, but it was built to last for sure.
I wanted to ask you, Greg, how do we convince homeowners that are probably buying their second house? Because obviously, in today's climate, you get young couples and they're either buying a condo to start off with because that's the affordability. But then all of
Yeah,
a sudden, a child, a dog, or both actually show up, and all of a sudden now you need a backyard and you need a little bit more space. So now you start considering your first house.
yeah,
But then you buy this first house. There's obviously a lot of things that you don't have because you can't afford that. But then you possibly get your second house and you start considering the second house to be your forever home. How do we get clients to start understanding? Don't keep on hopscotching to the next, to the next, to the next. Try to leave a better footprint in the existing one that you have right there. This is what I do in my own place. When I
yeah,
start dismantling one room and I start renovating one room, I'm factoring everything that's attached to all six sides of that room. It's a
yeah,
box, and then you got to understand where the heat loss, heat gain, everything. I want homeowners to better educate themselves to understand what we're talking about construction wise, that
yeah.
this is vital, that you have to factor this in. How do we have those conversations?
I think you just jump right into it. I'm not a real estate person, but I think if you just have that conversation, like, what are your thoughts? What are your visions? What do for this home? And then have those conversations of like, look, after you have it inspected, you can kind of go over like, look, your building envelope is lacking insulation here, here, and here. You can, make this home truly warmer and it feels like a home if you just re-insulate here, and maybe you start before you come in the home, maybe purchase that home and stay in that apartment for one extra month. And if you have the ability to renovate it the way you want it, or, like your technique is one room at a time and you just do it one room at a time, but just stress to them, like, here's what it could be, here's what it is, how would you like to go about this? I think, just giving them the facts let them kind of sift through it maybe.
I love that you first brought up at the beginning of the show passive building, because some of the best events that I ever went to in construction at the early part of my career was passive events where you had a room, probably about 50 or so people that had the same mindset, and you may not have agreed on everything exactly the same, but the thing
Yeah.
is that you were still having a conversation and trying to understand, first of all, how a house works. Most homeowners looking at a house and just the prettiness of it and trying to figure out what it could look like on Pinterest or house itself, instead of actually what the house is supposed to do for you emotionally, right? So you have to, there's a better feeling when you've got a comfortable home, when you've got an
Yeah.
energy efficient home. There's so many, it's far better than the color of paint, the type of appliance or whatever, all that kind of crap. I get it. Trust me. I love all that stuff too. But
Yeah.
I do love an idea of a home where the furnace isn't constantly on or heat sources aren't constantly on. Because
Yeah.
in my head, knowing from my experience in construction, that unit on means that there's heat escaping. That's what it means. So you're replenishing heat that's lost from the cavity. So I start trying to educate homeowners on that. We have to try to figure out where those holes are and what we have to do to achieve this. So then that unit doesn't have to be on all the time. And guess what? That utility bill isn't as heavy as you think it's going to be every month that you get it.
Yeah, exactly. I know for me personally, when we first moved into our house, uh, my wife was like, "Oh, it's great," and there's like a bunch of electric heaters everywhere, and she turned them all on. I'm like, "Hey, let's not do that." I was talking to an electrician, and he was like, "Using electric heat is like trying to cut butter with a chainsaw, incredibly inefficient," you know. And I'm like, "Let's not do that." She wanted a warm home. Okay, this is gonna hurt, but let's see, what happens. And of course, it was like $600. My wife lost her mind. I'm like, "All right, see this pain we're feeling, like here's how we can fix this." And that's when she was like, fine. She didn't appreciate how I wasn't upgrading the aesthetics, but also spending a ton of money at the same time, because she was very much so like the paint colors, the trim, let's upgrade this, that, and the other thing. And, and now we don't have to live in a 55-degree house. We've got it comfortable, and the kids are comfortable. They're not in 17 sweatshirts and 5 sweatpants.
Yeah.
And, but it was that initial pain. And if we can convince those people without that pain, it would be great.
Do you think, I know that I probably know the answer to this question. Do you think that we're building too big?
Yeah, I think so. I
We're,
think
we're totally
we should
building too
scale
big.
it down.
Yeah.
Scale it down. Like, I live in a very affluent area of New York, and you drive through some of these towns. I know my business partner Parveen. She lives on a street where her home is what I'd like to call like normal. It's like a 3-bedroom. It's not huge. Every room is filled with a person. She's got 2 kids herself, and there's like one house is like 9 bathrooms. It's just like massive, like, and it's like two people. It's a couple. Their kids are out. I'm like, it's a little obnoxious, and
Yeah.
you're also wasting your carbon footprint's massive to try and maintain that house.
So how do we change that mindset? Well, I guess the economy and the way of the whole world, everything's going on right now. You have to
Yeah,
build smaller.
yeah, and I know the governor of New York is pushing, because there's like a housing crisis. People are trying to buy a home, but no one can afford a home. So she's trying to push a lot of legislation to build homes in the state. And I'm hoping that these homes that she's trying to have build, one, workforce development, two, are affordable and, sized appropriately, and three, that they use, some type of construction method that is energy efficient, whether it's passive or Energy Star or LEED, whatever, that when someone does purchase this home, it's exactly that. Like you said, a warm home. It's comfortable.
I mean, affordability is a huge factor into all of this. The problem is that I find that a lot of the products that I actually like and make sense to me, I find that there's such a premium on them. And I
Yeah.
don't know if that's done on purpose, just because I think once you start talking about LEED, you start talking about having a net zero kind of home or something like that, I think there's advantages taken. by some of the manufacturers, and I think that's a little unfair because you would get more people considering these materials if they were more affordable.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think, we gotta, it's almost like forcing these manufacturers to just produce Energy Star rated, equipment, materials, stuff like that, energy efficient stuff. But it's also, trying to convince someone not to make so much money because it's so easy to produce, like vinyl siding or whatever. It's,
Yeah.
It's like you said, at an individual level, you gotta change the mindset. And for those upper echelons, I guess you gotta kind of like, what is the purpose of, of doing this? How can I be a better person?
So I know communication is big for you as well, and also respecting the trades and everybody getting along. So when it comes to the whole crew, everybody from the starting point, from actual architect drawings to engineering to designer to the actual first swing of the hammer, that all it's all about education at that point. Everybody has to be on the same page at that point.
Correct.
You got to choose the right team.
Yeah, and I think as contractors, you kind of get that bad rap on occasion of like you're trying to undermine the architect and blast them with change orders and stuff like that. And at least when I'm working, and it's a team first mentality. I served in the U.S. Army for 10 years, and it was team, all the time. So I bring that to my, I guess, management skills, where I focus on where it's just common goal, common one mission. Let's do it. It only makes sense. We all have to finish at the same finish line.
Yeah.
So it's a no-brainer for me.
It's interesting you bring up the military, because I had a good friend of mine. Actually, he's an American, but he's also Canadian because he married a Canadian. But he's actually considering going back to America, to either New York or to out west. And he was telling me that in military, there's less stress than there is in construction. So he's a GC, and he was trying to explain this to me. And I said, coming from you, who's also, you're a military person, retired, and you were also a New York police officer, and you're telling me that there's more stress in construction than the military. That's making me nervous. He goes, well, in the military, you're stressed when there's a situation of a potential threat to your life or to the lives of people that you're with, right?
Yeah.
But in construction, there's stress all the time.
Constantly.
That's the difference, constantly, right? So yep. I'm like, thanks for opening my eyes right now. I really appreciate it. But it was an interesting conversation to hear him say that, a vet, right? And I was like, oh, yeah. Wow, man, wow.
Yeah, I think where he's coming from, planning is huge. As I was an infantry officer, and it's actually what I'm writing my thesis on right now for my master's, and just the importance of planning. It's so critical, and you got to simplify your planning for these bigger facilities that are constantly building. If you can hone in on your planning, solidify it, make it easily digestible, so anyone who jumps into the project can pick up right where someone left off, or and you can also bring the design team and the GC in, and everyone's a part of it. It's a critical piece of the puzzle that I think is really lacking and is like crushing, especially on those larger projects, just crushing it. Because it's just like there's no in some places, I'm sure there is a standardization of your planning, your procedures, your methods, but making it easily digestible so someone can jump in, and the lack of it and lack of knowledge, it does make the construction industry slightly more stressful.
It does. I've always said to clients and people in the industry that if you're not spending more time planning the project than building the project, then you're off to a rough start.
Yeah. If you've ever laid out anything, and I don't consider myself a carpenter at all. I'm just a dude who likes to drink beer and swing a hammer, but it takes me half a day to lay out one thing, to make sure everything's square and straight and plumb, and then it goes up real quick. But it's that initial all right, how do I do this? Well, let's get the tape measure out, remeasure, measure again, measure a fifth time because I suck at it.
I'm the same way, Greg, because I mean I'm always constantly planning in my head trying to figure out the next chess move, right?
Yeah.
And then I mean, if I actually don't make it exactly perfect the way I want it, it takes me a lot less time to actually grab the sawzall and cut it out and start all over again. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because I want it to be a certain way at that point, because I know that if you build it a certain way, the efficiency attached to it is mandatory. That's just it. It's there. But if you kind of compromise on this one thing, you'll compromise on the next thing, and you'll compromise on the next thing. And then before you know it, the project that you started has been compromised. And
Yeah.
there's no point in doing it if that's the fact.
Yeah. And it, from our world, especially in the healthcare industry, you know, it's huge. If your plan is good and solid and you do run into an issue, like you said, contingency planning is massive. I know in the military, you have all these different contingency plans and you review it with everyone. So everyone's on the same page. You kind of put in the back of your head, like, all right, here's the plan. But if shit goes south, here's how we're going to react.
Yes.
It's, you know, and you can never plan for, you know, any specific scenario. It's never going to end up like that. But the same thing with building. You're never going to come into an existing building. You know, I always look at the electricians and I'm like, your job has got to suck, because you look at an old panel that isn't, you know, labeled and you're just tracing and you're like, oh, and then in the healthcare industry, it's like, oh, that circuit right there, that's, you know, Mrs. Jones on the 7th floor who's on life support. And it's just like, it gets real, really fast. And then it'll snowball if you don't have that planning set in stone.
Wouldn't it be funny, Greg, if you could actually try to figure out as many different scenarios of what could potentially happen on a job site from the moment you step on with an issue, and then how it could all play out by all the players involved, right?
Yeah, it would be an infinite amount. It would be impossible, man. It would be absolutely impossible.
Yeah, at the end of it, you'd be thinking to yourself, that one I didn't plan. I didn't think that was going to happen. But that's construction for you at that point.
And that's one of the reasons I do love it. It keeps you on your toes. You know, it lets you know you're alive to a certain extent. I'm not saying,
I agree.
Like, bring on the changes. I can't wait to open this splice box and blast myself through the wall over here because it's arcing everywhere, you know, like.
I just say good luck to the Sparkies when they start, you know, they come across the spaghetti there. And I'm like, you guys, good luck, man. Good luck.
Yeah, you just laugh in the corner like.
I have no idea, but then I'm in awe. Then I return and I'm totally respectful and I'm in awe. I'm like, you guys are amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah. But planning's huge, and that's one of the things I would like to focus on, especially because we also provide at the Builder Project CM services, and that's kind of like my little specialty of just like sitting down with an owner, planning everything out, and then also helping them make decisions. I know it is so tough to make decisions, and if you're slow with it, you're losing production, and then the GC is like, hey, here's a change order. You screwed me out of 5 days. Like, you got to pay for these guys. Like, the tin knockers are sitting on their ass, you know? So it's adds more stress, I guess.
It does, but that's construction. That's why we love and hate it sometimes, but it's also a collective. It's a team, and we all pull it off. We totally pull it off every time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool, Greg. I think we got the 12 questions just to wrap it up, but is there anything else you want to discuss before we get closer to the 12 questions there?
No, I guess who's going to win the Stanley Cup?
I have no idea. I don't follow sports at all, man.
What?
I'm sorry. I don't follow sports, man. I'm too busy making a podcast whenever I possibly can. You know, like, we've got a lot of shows out there. Who's going to win? I don't know who's in the Stanley Cup. I have no idea.
It's not even the playoffs yet, but
okay, there we go. So is it Canadian or American? Or is it both American or what? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I don't know. The playoffs haven't started, but you know, I'm a Rangers fan, so Carolina Hurricanes they're just another good year for them. So we'll see.
I'm the one duckling on the job site when everyone shows up in the morning with their coffee and they're asking or talking about sports or hockey. I just look at them going, okay, guys, I'll be over there.
Yeah, reading a manual about some like.
I'll be over there swinging a hammer. Yeah, trying to figure out how to build that or this. I don't know. Talk amongst yourselves about sports, man. Greg, we're talking to Greg Murphy, thebuilderproject.com, Greg at thebuilderproject.com, and on LinkedIn and Instagram, The Builder Project. I love what you guys are doing, man. And I'd love to actually, any plans on expanding it to Canada kind of thing? Getting it up here?
Yeah, I mean, we're just trying to get it off the ground now, but I think, one of our like this is 10 years down the road is just trying to create a coalition of the builder section to kind of come together and represent, the construction professional side of energy efficiency and healthy building. And I think if we can all come together as individuals, I think it's something that we could create something great.
You know what I will say, Greg, is that during this whole show and speaking to so many people, and I still looking forward to speaking to so many more people in the industry, there's a lot of people that care, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say, but there are a lot of people that care. There's a handful of people that don't give a crap, but there's a lot of people that do care about trying to build better.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Ready for the 12 questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
What is your favorite construction word?
Okay. Probably gonna have to say job well done, I guess. I don't know. It's a phrase. I don't know.
No, it could be a
There's
phrase.
So many out there.
I know I kind of trap people by saying a word, but it could be a phrase. It could be
job well done, I guess.
What is your least favorite construction word?
I don't know. That phrase.
What turns you on in construction?
Seeing the trades work together to solve a problem. When you're on a site and it's like, hey, the tin knocker's there, but the plumber needs to put pipe there, and they actually, you don't have to trade sit. You're just sitting there, and they took the onus onto themselves to just work it out. And it's just like, it makes your job so much easier.
They're being polite to each other and just talking.
Yeah.
What turns you off in construction?
I'm not a big fan of when you kind of set your people up for failure. I don't like that. Yeah. When you got to give them a shot. You got to give them a fair or swing at it, and you just kind of plop them on there, and it doesn't even have to be a junior person. It could be like a seasoned vet. You just throw them on the job. The foreman is like going on vacation, and you throw someone there, and it's like I make sure I speak to that individual, and I try, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to bring you up to speed, and then that's all I know, and I need you to kind of cover the ground quickly.
Nice. What is your favorite curse word? We haven't been swearing all that much.
Fuck.
There we go.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. It's so good. It can mean so many things. It's a verb, a noun, an adjective. It's a
perfect word. Perfect word. What is your favorite vehicle? Anything in the world?
Just a Ford F-150, a simple truck, nothing crazy.
Nice. What's your least favorite vehicle?
Mini Cooper, I guess.
You don't like the Mini Cooper, eh?
It's like a death trap,
It's true.
I'm scared if you're driving in it. New York is aggressive.
It's very, very true, man. But yeah, New York's got they got the bicycle police now, right?
Yeah, well, they've always had the bike police.
No, they're in smart cars. They're in smart.
Yeah, that's the traffic. NYPD has like a traffic people. The traffic ninjas that give you tickets like 2 minutes after it's like 7 a.m.
I was caught off guard the first time I saw them. I was like, what's going on there? Why do they have so much power? But they have a lot of power, right?
And then the cops in Grand Central are hilarious on the segways. It's really great.
What construction sound or noise do you love?
Probably a chop saw.
Any particular brand?
I guess if I had to choose, I'm a DeWalt person. But I'm also nowhere near as skilled as you. I'm just here to try and learn and be the best individual person I can be.
I just pretend, man. I just pretend. What construction sound or noise do you hate?
My fine tool. I absolutely hate it.
The oscillating,
it's like that vibrating noise, and then when you put it on metal, it just is like, please make it stop.
It's piercing.
Yeah.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt one day?
I wanna honestly, I wanna try them all. Like I'm not afraid to do things a few times. Plumbing, I will say, probably at the bottom, because I've burned myself so many times soldering that I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna take a break from that one.
I've learned, because I'm actually a soldering guy. I love copper. I'm not a fan of PEX and anything like that. But I've actually learned the fine skill of getting out of the way of the solder drops. You know what I mean? So you're making sure.
Just
But
watching the plumbers with all their joints, you don't even know if they use solder. You're like, where did it go? Where
tight,
is it?
tight, very, very skilled tight. I know. I know.
Yeah.
What profession would you not like to do?
Anything that's behind a desk, honestly. I look at my wife, and she's an editor for a market research firm, and I would go bananas. I was just, I couldn't. I gotta walk around. I gotta run something.
Last question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at those pearly gates?
Thank you, just for being a good person.
Nice.
Basically it.
Nice. Thanks so much, Greg, for being on the show. I really appreciate, man, you guys reaching out.
Yeah, thanks, man. Love the show. Keep up the good work. And
thank you, man.
And, maybe one day I'll make it up to Toronto.
Come out. I'd love to take the show on the road one day, but right now we're stuck in the studio. We're not stuck in the studio. We enjoy the studio and doing it. But everyone, please reach out if you have any questions for Greg at thebuilderproject.com, and his email is greg@thebuilderproject.com, and on LinkedIn and Instagram under The Builder Project. I think that's it, man.
Great.
Good. All right, cool. Thanks so much, Angelina. All right, Greg, we're at